Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the NYTE Time podcast. This is episode 9. That's NYTE, not your typical energy. Been a long time since I did a true episode. I've been doing a lot of hot takes and some short videos on singular subjects, but I think it's been about 9 months since I actually did a full podcast. And I think I've pretty much figured out that I'm comfortable in front of the camera now. I feel comfortable enough sharing my opinions. And I think the podcast is a pretty good format for me to vent and get some things off my chest. Kind of a little personal therapy. Let other people know that perhaps if they share the opinions that I have, they're not alone. And that not everybody's insane. I think that's important right now in this country because I think we're on the downhill slide as far as this empire goes. There's a lot of bad things happening, very few good things to look forward to. I first want to say thanks for spending your time with me. I know that everybody's very busy and they've got their own life to live, and entertainment's at a premium because we really need to spend some of our days doing stuff that makes us happy rather than just slaving away, at your job or whatever it is you do during the day to survive within the system. So it's not lost on me how valuable your time is, and that when you give me any of your time, I fully appreciate it. I understand. So I'll try not to waste what time that you're giving me. So first, let's tackle the election right quick. We are in 2024. We're going to have a presidential election this year. And the last one didn't go so great. I don't care whose side you're on. There's some very objective facts that need to be recognized, and I think that they get lost, and people don't talk about them enough. Biden won the election. I know that's hard to swallow for a lot of people, but Biden won the election. But Biden didn't win the election because everybody liked him and everybody thought he was the best candidate out there. Biden was what Democrats gave us. Okay? I much rather would have had Bernie Sanders or basically anybody else who wasn't 90 years old. Biden is barely there cognitively, and that's not his fault. I'm not saying Biden's a bad person, because he's not. I don't think he's any better or worse than most politicians out there. But the reason he won is not because he was the best candidate, is because Trump was the worst candidate. I know that's going to trigger people, and I'm sorry. I'll give this for Trump. He is very good at selling product. He's very good at convincing people and brainwashing people. He's not stupid in the sense that he understands how people think and how people's psyches work. So I give him full credit for that. But the reason he lost was because he was the worst candidate. We didn't vote. We didn't vote for Biden. We voted against Trump. I've said this before in several other videos. Biden didn't win so much as Trump lost. And Trump lost because he's fucking psychotic. He's a narcissist. He's a xenophobe. He's a fucking racist, a misogynist. He's all of the worst qualities you would never want in a boyfriend or girlfriend for your child. Like if your daughter came home with Trump and said, "Hey, I'm dating Trump," or a reasonable facsimile, if you had any ounce of integrity and desire to protect your child, you would tell your child, I can't allow you to date that person because he's fucking evil. He's evil. He's evil in a way that he doesn't care about anything but himself. And he's proved it in so many occasions, but people are still brainwashed because, and here's where it may get a little dicey for some people, but I gotta call a spade a spade. A lot of Democratic voters are not smart. And I think that the Democratic and progressive parties and their voters have spent so much time in this bubble of arrogance that that we're so much better and so much more intelligent and so much more knowledgeable about how the world works. We became comfortable in that knowledge and thought that it would just carry us, right? It would just keep us from bad things happening, and that we would be able to maintain a certain level of authority over how things are run. Now, Republican voters consistently vote against their best interests. It's a proven fact. On a lot of subjects, they don't seem to realize that the American dream is just that. It's a dream. It's a product that's being sold. Now, each party will package that dream in a different way in order to appease their voters and how they think they'll want to hear what that dream is like and how it's attainable. The problem is the Republicans are very good at selling their base on how hard it is and how dangerous it is for their American dream to survive, their version of it, if the Democrats are in charge. Republicans campaign on fear, and they're very, very good at it. And that's why the Republicans also do not want their base educated. Every time free college comes up for the country, the first people in line to bitch about it and try to vote against it and sell their base on how bad college is are Republicans, because they know that if they become educated and become capable of critical thinking and being able to think for themselves without the threat of fear of what might happen, they don't have anything over their base. They have fear and they have religion. That's it. They don't have anything else to campaign on. And Democrats vastly underestimate the power that the Republicans have in that arena. And we always, I've talked about this before. I think Michelle Obama once brought it up. When they go low, we go high. That's great in theory, but you can't count on that anymore, because the Republicans have sold their base so well on the fact that we Democrats and progressives feel and think and act that we're so much better than Republicans. They've been able to coalesce their voters into a very powerful block of pissed off white Christians. And they will vote single-mindedly. And Trump saw that, and he ran with it. He ran with it like a fucking savant. He knew, spending all of his years as a snake oil used car salesman, on how he perfected on how to bullshit people. He took that and took that base and galvanized it. And we didn't think that there were enough of them to beat Hillary Clinton in 2016. We thought, fuck, there's no way there's that many people who are easily led astray and misinformed and racist and shitty people. And I'm sorry, you may not call yourself a racist, but if you support a racist or misogynist or xenophobe, you by default, by guilt by association, you've adopted some of those qualities, whether you like it or not. Like, if a person, let's say a person running for office had a history of pedophilia, I mean, but he had some really great ideas, I thought, on how to run things. And so I vote for him. I don't like the part about the pedophilia, but he's got some great ideas, and I think he could steer the country in a great direction. I, by voting for him, by default, am promoting pedophilia and supporting it. That's just the way it is. And so there's a reason why and that's the reason why I wouldn't vote for that person, because I don't want to be a part of that. Okay? Now that may be an extreme example, but I think it drives home very neatly and succinctly that that's the same thing that happens with Trump. So we just didn't think there were that many people in the country who were that hateful, spiteful, disenchanted with the way things were going, that were that racist, that anti-woman, anti-gay, whatever you want to call it. It's a very hateful group. And there's a lot of them. And Trump has mastered the art of puppetry. He has taken the Republican Party and molded it after his own image. And the fact that we still entertain religion as a reasonable belief system is also crippling this country. It's a mental illness. It's a mental illness. And there's a lot of people that suffer from it. Religion throughout time has served one purpose, and that is a tool for power. If you can control religious people, you control a very large block of power. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that it's a mental illness lightly, because recently I found out that my parents were extremely religious, and to me it's a sudden thing, because growing up they never gave me 1 ounce of inference that they might believe in God, because it was, we never had topics about it. We never went to church. The only time we went to church was on holidays with my grandmother, because she was religious, a devout Christian. But I was never forced to go when I was old enough to have my own opinion. I stopped going when I was 14, and I remember it clearly because there was one final day that I went to church with my grandmother, and I remember suddenly becoming aware of my surroundings, and that it was basically a fashion show. The kids were shitty. They were bullies like they were outside of church, and I was taught that church was supposed to be a place of acceptance, and it didn't matter who you were or how much money you had. You were all the same in the eyes of God, but nobody acted that way. And so when I was 14, I made the decision that this is horseshit. Now, up until that point, don't get me wrong, I never believed. I just went and I listened and I absorbed what they had to teach, but it never resonated with me. I never felt the presence of God. I never had the feeling of the Holy Spirit. I never talked to Jesus, never saw Jesus. I listened to the teachings, and I basically accepted what they taught me because I was a child and that's what I was supposed to do. But I never had any religious epiphany or anything like that. The epiphany came at age 14 when I realized, hey, the same shitty people that are outside of church are inside the church. So I said, fuck it, I'm not going anymore. And my parents didn't have a problem with it. But recently, my father came out as a Christian and said he had always been a Christian. Not full-fledged, not I'm going to church every day type of Christian, but he believed in God. And his reasoning was, the reason he gave me at the time, because I was trying to have an intelligent conversation about it, he said that if God exists, I just want to be able to stand before him when the time comes and say thank you for the opportunity I was given to live my life here on earth. And we were at lunch, so it was towards the end of our time together at that moment, so I didn't get to expound on that further with him, but I remembered thinking to myself, that's a really shitty reason to believe in a belief structure with so much hate in it and so much insanity and unrealistic expectations. Like, I respected my father and thought he was one of the smartest guys I knew as far as the real world goes. And now I'm faced with the reality that he suffers from a mental illness. And like I said, I don't say that lightly. I have my own mental problems of my own. As my friends and former coworkers know, I had a breakdown at work and I lost my shit completely. And I still suffer from it to this day. Like, I had a psychotic breakdown, basically. Like, my brain, my mind snapped under all the pressure and all the horseshit that was going on between my work life and my home life, that I snapped, and I've never fully recovered. I'm still on so many drugs that to keep me level, to keep me not from being suicidal or wanting to self-harm, or just having severe mood swings. And so I understand what mental illness is, but I didn't choose mine. And I want to be very clear on that. What happened to me was not a choice. Okay? But when you choose to believe in a religion, and I don't care what religion it is, to be honest, whether you think it's harmless or not, it's the only right one, it's a right one, it's still a mental illness. You suffer from a certain type of mental illness where you can't accept the fact that your life outside of yourself and your family doesn't mean anything. We are an accident. We are very fortunate to be here as humans, as a species. And when we're gone, we're gone. That's it. Just like every other animal on the planet. And some people can't accept that. And they need some kind of deeper meaning for whatever reason, because they can't accept that our time on earth is precious and there's no do-overs. Religion is a do-over. Because basically what most religions will teach you, at least the white religions, no matter what kind of piece of shit human being you can be, as long as you ask for forgiveness and turn your life over to Christ, you can be forgiven for all your sins and you'll still get to go to heaven. That's pretty fucking insane. And you've chosen to believe that, which means your mental illness is a chosen one. Now, we can have a debate on whether or not there's some kind of gene or some kind of, some kind of environmental factor that predisposes you to fall for shit like that, to fall for scams, because religion is a scam. And we can debate that. I will listen to you wholeheartedly. And, I'll give you the opportunity to try and sell me on it, but I've seen no reasonable evidence to believe that there is a God, at least the God that they preach about. Now, if someone, and I think the Westboro Baptist Church is great at this. I think they are one of the true believable groups that believe in God, because they believe, and they spout all the horrendous shit that God believes. Okay, as far as being anti-homosexual, anti-women being in charge, all the other stupid shit. And the Amish are another group. They're not hateful, but they choose to live their lives a hell of a lot closer to God than most Christians in regular society do. I've run into so many more people who live their lives as Christian who aren't religious than Christians who live their lives as Christians. Okay, most of the most hateful, spiteful, evil human beings I've run across, in my opinion, are religious ones. They say they're Christians, but nothing they think or say or do leads me to believe that they are, that somehow God would favor them. And that group of people, if you can control that group of people and tell them, hey, God sent me to be your retribution, to be your leader, to help save this country that God created. That's a powerful, powerful block of voters. And Trump has figured that out. He's not the first, obviously, ever since religion became deeply rooted in politics, it's been a downhill spiral from there. And Republicans mostly, and I'm talking about the modern Republicans, okay, everybody needs to be aware of their history. At one point, Democrats and Republicans were reversed. The modern day Republican used to be the latter day, the old times Democrats. Okay, the Democrats used to be the shitty, racist pricks that they were, but then for some reason there was a paradigm shift and the parties changed. It was like they did a swap. It was like the polls reversed on the political parties. So when a Republican says, well, the true racists were the Democrats, or are the Democrats, no, they were the old Democrats, not the new ones. So don't let them spin that horse shit on you. And the modern day Republicans have figured out that religion obviously is a very powerful tool, and they use it. And Trump has mastered it. He has convinced people that he is anointed by God. Now, if that doesn't fucking scare you and scream mental illness, I don't know what is, because anybody who would be truly religious and believes that, I mean, is that not heresy? He believes he's the second coming of Christ in his head. And he's managed to convince other people of that. That's insanity. That is a mental illness. And this time, this election, I don't know if there's going to be enough people who want to vote against Trump and for Biden for that reason. Because Biden is now so fucking old, it's very painful to watch him speak. Okay, and like I said, this is nothing against Biden. It's not his fault. He's old. Everybody gets old. Okay, but trying to coalesce around Biden one more time just to keep Trump out of office, I don't think is enough to sell people this time. When presented with Biden, who is clearly suffering from dementia and doesn't know where he is half the time, versus Trump, who's in the beginning stages of dementia, because if you listen to him talk at a rally and his speeches, they're so fucking weird and off the wall and in 20 different directions. He sounds like me when I'm having a discussion. So if that tells you anything. But Trump is also evil. He has the country's best interests not at heart at all. only his own. The only reason he's running is because he wants that presidential immunity to be able to pardon himself for all the crimes he's committed. That's the only reason. There is a reason he decided to announce that he was running for the presidency again so fucking early, like two and a half years early, the earliest time anybody had ever announced that they were going to run, because he knew he had to start as soon as possible so that he could start blaming all of the shit that was coming down the pipe against him, federal and civil, in court. He knew he had to start running so he could use that as a shield. That now he says it's a political witch hunt, and they're only doing it because they want to interfere with the election, and that's not true. That's not fucking true. I'm sorry. You are going to be convicted of a lot of these crimes. You did the crimes, and you're going to do the time. Okay, and the fact that he's convinced people that somehow he's above the law, everything he's done, you don't just pull 91 federal charges out of your ass as a prosecutor. Okay, that just doesn't happen. I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So I don't know what else to say to convince people other than what I truly believe is that if Trump wins this next election, it'll probably be the last one. It'll probably be the last election we have. So I wish the Democrats had enough sense to talk Biden into saying, I'm not going to run because I don't feel I can execute the duties of the office, and given us a younger, better candidate to run against these assholes in the Republican Party. And don't get me wrong, if the Republicans put anybody other than Trump to run against Biden, I will give that candidate a serious look before I vote for Biden. If it's DeSantis, no. DeSantis can go fuck a cactus. I don't care. DeSantis is like, he's a wannabe Trump, which is really, really bad. Because he's got the desire to have the power that Trump has, but he doesn't have the intelligence, the ability to sell people that Trump has. I don't blame Trump for being Trump. I blame the people that gave him that power. The less intelligent, less sane group of voters that think Trump is somehow God's gift to America. And as far as Kamala Harris goes, like I was saying, I don't give a fuck that she's a woman, or I don't give a fuck about her race, her sexuality, what culture she comes from. If you listen to her talk, she's like not all there. She's like an airhead, okay? And that I'm not anti-woman, anti-foreign blood, anti-black, whatever the fuck you want to say. Just because I have negative opinions about something does not mean it's rooted in bigotry or racism. And that's the other thing that our party, the Democratic Party, needs to shut the fuck up about. Every time something negative is said about somebody and they're not white or male, that's what it's about, is the race or the sexuality or their culture, their nationalism. That's not the case. That's not the case. Sometimes it is, but not every fucking time. It's not. And Kamala Harris is not suited to be president. She's a fucking airhead. Whenever she talks, it's painful to listen to. Okay? And I'm a Democrat, and I can admit it. So, anyway, I don't know how else I don't know how else to say it other than the Democrats, if we lose this election, it'll be our fault. It will be our fault for not hammering Trump on his felonies, for not hammering him on how evil he is. for not putting forth better candidates to vote for, then that's just it, and it'll all be downhill from there if Trump wins. I'm telling you, I don't believe we will have an election after that for president if he manages to get back in. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. If he does get elected president, I hope he doesn't fuck the world. I hope he doesn't fuck this country into oblivion. I hope that he's successful in keeping us together and keeping us out of war and not turning us into a dictatorship or a kingdom. But if I was a gambling man, the odds are very high against him succeeding because of who he is. But I'm not going to root for him to fail. That's the other thing that a lot of us need to understand. Both parties do this. They root for the other side to fail. And when that failure happens, it's not just on that person. It affects the whole country. They're rooting for the country to fail, so it makes their candidate look better. That shit's got to stop too. Our political system is broken because of that, and I don't know if it's recoverable even if Biden wins again. The politics are so fucked up nowadays. This is the last thing I'm going to say about this for now. This country does not deserve the freedom it has because we are not smart enough as a whole in this country to make the correct, proper, altruistic decisions that will protect us from ourselves and protect us from everybody else. That's just the case. So, enough about the election. We'll talk more about that at another time. We got, 7 or 8 months before voting day. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about between now and then. Next thing I'm going to jump in on real quick is the Israel-Palestine situation. This is another case of if you say one thing, people will force others to interpret what you say as wrong or evil or anti-whatever. So, Israel got attacked by Hamas. Hamas is not Palestine, and Hamas doesn't represent all of Palestine. A lot of Palestinians didn't agree with the attack. They didn't ask for it. They didn't vote for it. But Hamas attacked Israel and killed a lot of people, over 1,000 in the initial attack. Israel didn't deserve that. Nobody deserved that. But Israel turned around and has waged a brutal, vicious, retaliatory campaign against Hamas, and they don't give a fuck who they kill in order to achieve this goal of destroying Hamas. Now, as the United States goes in foreign policy, our retaliatory strikes, when they have to happen, are proportional for the most part. Israel doesn't seem to think that way or believe that way. And so far, I think as of this recording, there's over 24,000 people dead. Palestinians and Hamas, mostly Palestinians, a lot of them children. So over 1,000 killed in Israel versus 24,000 people killed in Palestine. I think a ceasefire is a reasonable suggestion at this point. And if you say that, you are an anti-Semite. You are anti-Israel. You're anti-Israel defending themselves. Well, at what point in a normal situation, let's say somebody on the street attacks you, just fists, they start beating the shit out of you, and you have a gun. You pull out your gun and you shoot the person in the leg, stop them from attacking you. Is that a proportional response? I think so. That's how I would do it. I wouldn't shoot to kill. I know better. I know that nobody deserves to die just because they physically attacked me. That's not a death sentence. And I sure as fuck am not the person to make that decision that his life should end. But I'm going to put the person who attacked me in a state of being where he can't attack me anymore. Now, other people would say, hey, he deserves to die. He attacked me. I was just defending my life. But I think that's really an excuse just to take a life, because secretly, I think a person that would shoot to kill in a situation like that really has lived their life up until that point waiting for the chance, hoping the chance that they get to use their gun and kill somebody. So they can say, hey, see, all along, I was telling you, we need to have guns because this is what happens and you need to defend yourself. I don't believe in that. Just like I don't believe if somebody breaks into your house, you scare them away and they're running away and you decide to shoot them in the back in self-defense, fuck you. That's murder. Your life wasn't in danger at that point. They didn't have any weapons. They were running away and you decided to kill them because you were mad. And you made the decision on your own as a vigilante at that point to give them the death sentence, to try and kill them, to murder them. So, back to Israel. At what point is enough enough? How many innocent people do you have to kill before you think maybe we should adjust our position on how we deal with Hamas? And I'm not saying that, Hamas is right, Hamas is good. I think they're a bunch of evil fucks. Do they use Palestinians as human shields? Do they hide shit in tunnels and in places where there are innocent civilians? Yes, they do. There's no reason to not believe that. But at what other time does it seem reasonable to say, yeah, I'm just going to fucking kill everybody in order to complete my goal of killing that Hamas soldier or that Hamas official or that cache of weapons? I'll use another example here. Let's say you've got a neighborhood where a gang is in charge of a lot of things, and gangs are bad inherently because they rely on criminal activity to get what they need done, to get their money, to terrorize people. So, you're the police department, and let's say one night a gang decides to commit some murders around town, and they kill a lot of innocent people. Let's say they kill 20. They go on a murder spree. Some of the people they kill are rival gangs. A lot of them are innocent people. It happens. After it happens, the police department decides, and the mayor decides, the police chief all get together and decide, okay, we're going to go destroy this gang at any cost. And rather than do the proper thing and ferret them out without putting innocent civilians in harm's way, they just go start blowing up neighborhoods where suspected gang activity is occurring, where there are drug houses, drug stashes, weapon stashes, secret clubs, secret hangouts for the gang members, and they just start fucking blowing up the block, every block where there's suspected gang activity, regardless of who else lives there. Would that seem reasonable? I don't think it would be. Like I said, I'm not always right. I'm not always the smartest guy in the room, but that seems a bit excessive. But that's what's happening over in Palestine. Israel said, fuck it, we're going to blow up everybody in order to get to Hamas, and we don't give a fuck who's in the way. Now, they cover themselves by saying, well, we warned the civilians to move. Okay. Hey, move from the north to the south because we're going to carpet bomb the north into the fucking Stone Age. Okay, that happens. They get out as fast as they can. They don't really have anywhere to go except south. Palestine's a very small place. There's 2 million fucking people living there. And then they turn around and Israel bombs the south while they're moving into the south because that was supposed to be the safe zone. And then they turn around and say, hey, get out of the South because we're going to carpet bomb the fuck out of that place into the Stone Age. So go ahead and move back north. We know we left you nothing there because it's completely destroyed, but we don't give a shit. And then they start bombing the South, whether innocent civilians are there or not. And then they start bombing the North again. That's Israel's angle on this. That's their approach. I'm not an anti-Semite. I don't hate Jews. But I can also say that, hey, Israel's being really fucking evil about this in their approach to attacking Hamas. I don't think that's a reasonable statement to make. It's not an unreasonable statement to make. You know, it's not out of the realm of possibility that maybe Israel is being a little fucking evil about this. And when the word genocide is thrown around, I don't think that's out of bounds either. I mean, I don't. It's like logic and sanity do not apply in certain areas, and when you do apply it, you're the evil one, you're the bad one, you're the wrong one. In truth, I could give a fuck about either side, to be honest. I'm sick of the Middle East and all their horseshit and all their wars and all their spats and all their petty disputes, a lot of it based on fucking religion. Hey, you know, the insanity of religion over where the fucking Holy Land is, where their imaginary God lives or has ordained that his chosen people live. People kill each other over and over for that. Over religion. Yes, so I don't have any fucking sympathy for them, either side. As far as I'm concerned, honestly, they could blow each other up and I wouldn't fucking lose any sleep. I'm not anti-Jew, I'm not anti-Palestinian, I'm not anti-Hebrew, anti-fucking Muslim, none of that. If they could learn to fucking live together and not be so insane, I would also be okay with that. But I'm not going to sit here and look at this, what's happening, and say one side is better than the other, because at this point they're not. They're both equally the same. They're both equally evil. And the Palestinians are caught in the middle of it. And are there a lot of bad Palestinians? I'm sure. Just like there's a lot of bad Israelis. Just like every other part of the world, there's a lot of bad Americans in America. That's why our fucking prison system is so packed, because we have a lot of bad, evil people. Nobody's immune to that. Am I anti-American because I say America's fucked up? No. I would love for this country to survive and thrive and not just get by and not just be good enough. We're supposed to be the greatest country in the world, and we suck. We suck. There's so many things wrong with this country. Are we better than most countries? Yes. Probably, but why is being better than mediocrity so great? It's not. It's a sales job by our government, by our politicians. It's not real. We're being scammed. And because we're so fucking insane in this country and screwed up and incapable of critical thinking and reasonable thinking, we've put ourselves in the positions where if you question Israel and their approach to this war, well, then you're evil and you're anti-Semite and this and that. No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. Unless you come out and say Hamas was justified in killing innocent people in that first attack, then you're an evil fuck. And you're not thinking correctly. That makes you probably an anti-Semite or anti-Israel or whatever you want to say. So that's my thought on Israel and Palestine. Just my opinion. You can call me right or wrong. You're allowed to have your own opinion. I'm willing to have a discussion with anybody about it. But people need to open their eyes and look at reality for what it is. So that's enough about that. I'm sure that'll come up later in another episode. Here's another touchy subject while I'm sticking my foot in my mouth. Transgender people in sports. Did everybody's asshole pucker up? Okay, transgenders. I got no problem with transgender people. I wish them the best. I think every person should have the ability and the resources available to them to live their best life possible as the person they believe they are. I believe if you are born a male and you feel like you should have been female, all of your inclinations are female, your way of thinking is female, you have no attachment whatsoever with the male side of the species. If you want to live your life as a female, have the sex change, do whatever, great, because it doesn't affect me. How you live your life doesn't affect me. If you're not hurting anybody else and you're living your best life and you're trying to be a good person, I wish you the best of luck. I owe you the same thing I owe everybody else in this world, and that's indifference. Okay? I don't hate you because you are born a male and you want to be a female, or you think you should be a female, or you've transitioned into a female. That's your choice. I'm not going to base my interactions with you on that, on how you live your life, unless you're doing things illegal or immoral based on my morals. And I don't force my morals on anybody else like religion does. I don't need an invisible man in another dimension who only rewards you with shit after you die to tell me not to kill people, not to steal, not to hate, not to covet. Which, by the way, I don't think coveting is a bad thing. It shouldn't be a sin. Taking the Lord's name in vain is a sin. Fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. Fuck God. He can kill me right now. He doesn't. Why? I could die in 20 years after this video posts, and people say, yeah, well, that's what he gets for talking shit. Yeah, it took God 20 years to get around to it. Or maybe it was my time to go. How about that? Because God doesn't exist. So my set of morals and beliefs doesn't preclude people who want to live their life alternately opposed to mine. I'm a male. I was born a male. I have no inclinations towards the female side of the species, thinking that's how I want to live, that I'm sexually attracted to guys. I'm not. I didn't make that choice. I didn't wake up one day and say, you know what? Today's the day I'm making the decision. I'm not attracted to guys. I never had to make that decision because that wasn't part of who I was. I was born liking females. It just happened. I do not think being gay is a choice. I don't think you choose to be attracted to a certain species or a certain sex of the species. You are born with it. That's why there's so many kids at an early age, at 5 and 6, who act and think and talk a certain way when they're not forced into the opposite way. There's a lot of parents who have children who are gay, and they knew they were gay from a very early age, like 5 and 6, but they don't say anything about it. They let the child develop on their own. And then society comes and shits on you and feeds you all this information about how bad it is to be gay, how immoral, and how against God, that they're so afraid to come out to their parents that a lot of them don't, and they live their lives in fucking misery, trying to be somebody they're not. And the whole time the parents know, but they don't want to broach the subject because some of them don't want to put their child through that. They want them to come out in their own time. And then when the child finally comes out, the parents are like, well, yeah, we knew all along. We still love you, which is what should happen. If it's your child, you love them unconditionally. Okay? You love them unconditionally. Even if your child commits murder, you love them unconditionally. Do you turn them into the police? Do you allow them to take responsibility for what they've done and accept the punishments the society doles out? Yes, but you can still love them. You don't shun them. You don't turn them away. And when your young child comes to you and says, I'm gay, the only response you should give if you are a loving parent and you are kind and you are decent and you deserve to have that child, is I don't care. I love you. You are who you are. That's it. That's the only fucking response. Any other response means you're a shitty parent, you don't deserve your kid, and your kid needs to be with somebody else who's going to love them unconditionally. Fuck you, fuck your religion, fuck your backward Stone Age thinking. Okay? And I say that from the bottom of my heart. Now, having said that, I support the gay community, I support trans, I support everybody living their life the way they need to live in order to be happy. Because my life is not affected by who fucks who in somebody else's house. I don't think gays and trans are automatically sex offenders. They're not pedophiles. That doesn't mean that some gay people aren't pedophiles, but I got news for you. Most of the pedophiles are straight. So who's worse? You guys can go fuck yourselves. Having said all that, trans people in sports is a very dicey subject, and it's one where I come down on the opposite side of most people who think like me as far as acceptance. There is a biological difference between males and females. You can't deny that. You can't get over that. Men are the bigger, the stronger sex in the species. That wasn't by choice, that was by evolution. It just happened. Women are naturally naturally smaller in size. Normally, they don't have the strength that most men have. It's not a good or bad thing. It's just what it is. And if you are a male transitioning to a female, I don't think you belong in the same sport as biological women. I don't think that's a radical statement. You are physically superior to the females in most cases if you are born a man. And so I think if you are going to participate in female sports as a biological male, there should be a minimum 5 years, I think at least, taking hormones, transitioning, and you also need to tear your ticket. And what I mean by that is you have to have had your sexual organs switched over. That may sound arbitrary, but I think that's probably the line for me in saying that is a full commitment. Okay? Now, I don't think like the Republicans and religious people and say, well, if we start allowing these men who are biological men into women's sports, guys are just going to do that because they want to excel and be the best, and they're just doing it because they can to prove a point, or this other bullshit. I don't think anybody, honestly, I don't think in the real world any guy is going to say, I'm going to live my life as a female and put myself up for that ostracization and ridicule just so I can be the best female basketball player in the world. You know, that kind of shit. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that does happen. But I also do think a level of commitment is required. And in order to level the playing field, you need to have your sexual reassignment surgery, and you have to have, whatever the doctors say, the scientists say, is a long enough time for taking hormones that it limits the superiority of your physical being as far as strength and stamina because of your born sex. Once that's minimized so that the playing field is a little more even, then you should be allowed to play with the biological women. I don't think that's an anti-trans statement. I'm sorry. I think that's I think that's logical. I think that's realistic. I think that's something that people could get behind as far as being fair. Or you start a whole different league. If there's truly that many transgender people out there, you start a separate league where they play themselves. You know, you're only allowed to play in this league if you're transgender. Now, does this hurt children if they're still younger than 18? And if you're born a male and you want to live your life as a female, you've made that decision. There's no second guessing. You're starting your transition, but you haven't had your surgery and you haven't been taking hormones long enough to counteract how you were born. I don't think you should be able to play in the school sports unless you're going to play on the side that you were biologically born as. I know that sucks. It's a shitty thing that you were born in a body that did not match who you truly are. But I think that's the only way we can have a compromise in this situation. I don't think it's safe for young boys who are growing up to be playing with young girls in sports. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm looking at it from an objective standpoint. It seems like the logical conclusion. It's an olive branch to the other side who thinks that being transgender is evil and they should never have the opportunity to do anything ever with the opposite sex if they were born. It's a compromise. Now, yes, it's a little bit of a hardship for that person growing up while they're young that they can't participate with the people that they identify with. That's just the breaks. Some people are born better looking. Some people are born with massive deformities. Not everybody's born equal, born into great families, born into wealth. That's just the luck of the draw. It's a shit deal. But we have to have some kind of coming together point. And it's on issues like this that's going to make that possible. Okay? The country has to come together and have a compromise on all these fucking culture issues and religious issues and societal issues. We can't just say one side's right and one side's wrong, because then nothing will ever get done. And half of the country will always be against the other half. And it'll always be a fight, and there will be no compromise. And it'll be worse than what it has to be. So that's my thought on transgender in sports. I fully support the community, but we have to have a compromise. And there has to be a certain line drawn. It's like this next subject, abortion. I've talked about abortion, till I could, puke. It's nobody's choice but the female who's pregnant and her care provider, her doctor. That's it. It's nobody else's decision on whether or not the abortion happens or doesn't happen. In an olive branch to the other side, at some point, after the female has been made aware that she is pregnant through science, through a test with a doctor, and the doctors do the ultrasound and say, yep, you're pregnant, there is a certain amount of time she can decide whether or not she wants to have this baby or not. Because right now, the baby's not fully developed. It's still a globule of fucking cells and mucus and snot and blood and shit and whatever. It's not a baby. But at a certain point, the child becomes developed enough to where you got to say, okay, you've waited this long to make a decision whether or not you're going to have this baby. You've waited long enough. Now you're going to have the baby unless there's some medical reason that involves your ability to survive or the baby's ability to survive. After that point, you're going to have to go through with the pregnancy. And I don't think that's unreasonable. It's a logical conclusion. It's a compromise that both sides at some point are going to have to come together as. You can't just say, well, at 6 weeks, pregnancy after 6 weeks, you can't have an abortion. A lot of women don't know they're pregnant until after that, or exactly that point, and then you're going to force them to make the decision right at that situation, or they find out too late, and now you're forcing them to have the baby. Okay, then you might as well tell women, if you become pregnant, you become property of the government. You become property of the state. You become cattle. You are a broodmare. That's what you are. You are a baby-making machine, and that's it. You can't have it at 6 weeks. You can't have it at 15 weeks. There needs to be a certain point where all doctors and women get together and say, here's the reasonable amount of time once you find out you're pregnant. Okay? After that, you have a certain amount of time to decide whether or not you're going to have this baby. Once you reach a certain point in the pregnancy, the baby is developed enough to where both sides agree that yes, this is pretty much a baby. It's already done forming. It's just growing at this point. And then you say, that's where the line is drawn. That's not that unreasonable. That's not that radical. It's a compromise that both sides need to come to in this country if we're ever going to move on to more important shit. So, okay, I've ranted enough. This has been episode 9 of the NYTE Time podcast. I am your host, Matt Higgins. I appreciate you spending time with me. I hope that I haven't offended people, and if I have, I hope that you're also capable of some rational thought and some objective thinking and can at least listen to what I've said and maybe give it some thought, digest it, absorb it, and don't hate me for having my opinions. I don't hate you for having your opinions. I may have some thoughts about you that aren't flattering, but it doesn't make me hate you. You gotta be a real fuck up for me to hate you. So I hope you feel the same way about me. I'm just an old white fat man with some opinions. But I think my opinions are shared by a lot of people, but they're afraid to say it because they're afraid to get canceled, or afraid they'll make somebody mad, or they'll think that they'll feel that they're not loyal to their side. Loyalty is bullshit. If you think and act and speak based off of loyalty or some other bullshit ideology, and you don't base it off of logic and reason and sanity and some morals that are accepting of both sides, then you're fighting for the wrong reason. You're fighting for the wrong cause. That I can say with confidence. So, peace, love, and gossip to everybody. Okay? Have a great day, and next week we'll do episode 10. Bye.